right, right. And that's just my solution to it.
Okay, real quick, y'all. We got the homie Canaanland Moore in the building. At Canaanland, we about to let you in here. We do not want to talk about no more shit. Okay. Just want to talk about the law. And I know you got work for the law. So let's keep it all on the same frequency, y'all. We ain't gonna invoke any emotional response from either side. We're gonna keep this frequency and keep building about the law. Canaanland, what's good, man? How you, brother?
Peace to the panel. Just in here saying what up. I just got off a little law build myself with some other Moors. We're trying to get the sisters in order, and we're starting up a a panel called Wisdom of the Womb. But as we get it working, we'll get the word out so that
That
the people
that
can be.
sounds dope, bro. That sounds dope. I love the name Wisdom of the Womb. So you should be fresh. You got anything you wanted to add about anything that you've heard so far? Any misconceptions or anything?
But I was listening for a little bit. I didn't get in too long ago. But one thing that we can correct is making sure that we stop calling these people government, because once you call them things that they're not, they assume those positions because these people deal with assumed
Facts.
jurisdiction all the time. So when when we're dealing with um those entities that's calling themselves government, we would classify them as what they are: private, foreign, European corporations, or colonizers,
Agents.
or agencies, or companies. Do not call them government. As soon as you call them government, you give them jurisdiction to do governmental things which they don't have jurisdiction to do, based on the fact that they're not government. We are.
It's facts. When you're talking to a police agent, is not a police officer because you did not elect him to office.
But even on the other side of that, don't even call them police, call them highwaymen, because all they do is rob people at the side of the road. And that's
Yep.
in the law dictionary as well. Just look up highwayman in a Black's Law dictionary, Ballantyne's, Bouvier's, highwayman's in there. And those are what those people are. Even if you want to call them mercenaries, but don't call them anything having to do with law enforcement. Don't call them anything having to do with police or servant protectors, because really what their duty is to carry out the policies of the corporations.
Corporation.
Why they have what they call blanket oaths or blanket bonds, because none of their stuff applies to them individual. They have um
Exemption.
it's a sort of exemption, because none of
They're
them are really law enforcement.
assumptions.
So you can't hold them to anything lawful, because they're not being lawful. They're criminals.
I would like to
Right.
collaborate with what you're saying, Canaanland, for the chat room to understand what you mean as far as like they're not the government, basically breaking it down, what he's saying is once you actually know how to get into private status or correct status or become national, you are actually governing bodies. So as a governing body, you become governing government. So as individuals, if we are able to get enough people in the same level, in the same status, and be able to go move forward, we become that government of that cooperation.
And to add on to that, keep in mind that government is a compound word: govern and ment. Ment is mind. So real government are people who are in control of their mind state. So if your mind state is off, then you
Or,
can't be
or
government.
condition, like how they say like mint condition for like when collectors and stuff. So when like people hear the word mint, it's not MINT, it's still NENT. It's a condition. So like what you're saying, you know, it's a condition of the mind. If a person is not competent with law, then they are going to take advantage of that person, you know.
And just with regard also to governing the mind, look up in the law dictionary, constitutional psychopathic inferiority. Look that up. That's a law term. And that's a term that majority of these colonists have, because they are not about enforcing de jure law. They're about enforcing de facto law.
And that takes you out of the state of mind and puts you in a state of residence or a state of jurisdiction.
Which also could be called state of wardship, which is why Moors teach that it's important that you have a nationality and proclaim that nationality. Because by having a nationality, that gets you out of the wardship status into your in full life status, which is also a law term. Look up in full life.
What was the other one? Psychopathic?
Constitutional psychopathic inferiority. Because we have to remember
that's the law they use that take you out of the state of your own mind and puts you in a state of jurisdiction. That law right there.
Right, because they have to always, because they're not the heirs to the land, they always have to assume. Right? That's why they tell you innocent until proven guilty. But when you walk in there, you're guilty.
Guilty.
Because they're assuming. And they're not dealing with de jure law. They're dealing with de facto law. They're dealing with quasi law. Look up quasi.
Yeah. And again, the chime in on what the brother's saying, you under the assumption until you place your foot in that courtroom, now the presumption is to be true. Now you got to prove yourself innocent of their guilty cause. You understand?
Right, and again, just to correct again, don't call those places court. Call them administrative buildings, because those aren't courts. I don't care what they, even if they call it supreme, that's not a court. It's an administrative building. If it wasn't about administration, they wouldn't be calling it courts of record when the record is really for them. The record is not
information.
Yeah, right. And then if it was about court, you wouldn't be going there to pay fines, because you don't do, that's a conflict of interest that they're collecting fines at the court.
Exactly. And especially if they collected fines of a non-financial system, they telling you got to play our monopoly game to bring us our monopoly money for us to free you off of our game. So it's a what they call a double jeopardy type of thing.
Yeah.
Now you come in and recognize the fine, recognize the money. Now you recognize their system. Well, and this is what they're trying to get people to understand too.
I wanted to say something real quick. As far as like for the chat room, you know, for the assumption and the presumption and all of these words, to decode that real quick. Assumption is really assumed option, and presumption is really pre-assumed option. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that if a lot of us get into situations with these highwaymen where we might get tickets and stuff like that, one of the practices that we tell Moors is that if you get tickets, for example, and your life is not on the line or whatever like that, it's just, some $20, $30, $50 ticket, sign the back and fight it so you could practice in that jurisdiction. Because let's say they find you guilty. Ain't no big deal. It's only $20. There's no jail time or anything like that. But at least that way you can get familiar with how these people operate in their venues. Because majority of people, they know everything about everything, metaphysics and high science and history and whatever. When it comes to law, they have no idea what it is.
No idea.
And then on the other side of it, they're thinking that they're dealing with people who are lawful just because they wear a black cloak or they got a sash on, or
and they really building confidence.
Right.
Yep,
And
that's the way to build
the
confidence.
black coat, the black robe is the robe of mourning. That's a mourning robe, and is just that death, the robe of death.
Yeah, I
Um,
was gonna say the
but
robe
also,
of death.
but
That's like
also,
the phantom robe.
but
Yeah,
also remember
or
too. Remember
what's
too.
that thing
Just
that
like
come kill you, come take you away with the machete, not the machete, but with
The Reaper, the Reaper.
the
Yeah,
reaper.
the
Yeah,
Reaper.
that's what they
Yep.
are, the reaper.
right, but again, um, don't get caught up because the robe is in actuality a jalabia because all these people are Masons. So they know about our Moorish history, which is why they dress like us in order to beat our ass. The KKK dresses in Moorish garb. That's not some European stuff that the KKK is wearing. That's our
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
So they're using our own things. We were the ones who founded courts. We were the ones who founded government. We're the ones who founded all these things that we're complaining about being abused by. But it's only because, just like the title saying, ignorance of law is no excuse. So you can't say, well, I didn't know. That's why you got violated. You should know because we're the founders of everything. It's no
yep.
different than with somebody just said in the chat that popped up about not acknowledging the judge. That guy's not a judge. Don't give him that power. As soon as you give him that power, you lose it.
Yeah,
That's
you
why,
call them clerk of the court, or when
I
you
just
go and
want to
address
say
them, you say
one
right.
thing real quick.
my honor. Go ahead.
One thing real quick. I just want to put this out here. Canaanland is going to use the term more. Please, y'all, do not start talking shit about this more shit. We understand where he's coming from. We understand what the brother means. We should not have to jump on his head every time you use that term. We understand how the brother identifies. And he's bringing us some jewels and some work. So I don't want to see in the chat about we're not no fucking Moors and we're not. We know this already, y'all. This is how he chooses to use and articulate what he knows, and we're gonna accept our brother for what he knows and what he is and what he does for his ancestors and for his people.
That's his
Continue, bro.
right to claim who he is, and it's
That's
no
right.
one's business
That's
to
right.
cast him down.
That's
All
right.
right, stay in your own lane. You won't have to worry for getting ran over. You know what I'm talking?
Sean, sin.
Again, just for clarity, like I've tested the waters with all the different, well, at least in this jurisdiction where we're at in so-called Canada, you don't want to be Indian here because that means you're under the European. That's why we say more here.
Here too, it's the same here too, bro.
You know
It's
what I
the
mean?
same, but
So
they don't recognize it as that.
it's not a thing of we're trying to force our people to call themselves that or whatever. People might take it like that because of how Moors talk, but Moors have been in the black school of thought. We've been in the Hebrew school of thought. We've been in the Kemetic school of thought. We've been in the metaphysics school of thought. We've been in the Aboriginal Indigenous school of thought. And the only thing from my experience, not just hearsay or my opinion, but from my experience, the only thing that makes these Europeans shake in their boots is when we say that we're Moors, because they know the obligations that they have to the Moors because of what the Moors did for them in the past.
I think that's a good point, and I like the way you articulated that. I we all have our own little understandings and understandings of things, but at the end of the day, no matter what you call yourself or no matter what you choose to identify with, we all need to have the base understanding that it is every entity's right to identify with whatever the fuck they want to identify with.
Right.
And if they want to be black, fuck them. Let them be black. And I understand what you're saying too about using the term more and how in your past experiences that is what's worked. See, we in the business of getting results here in this Aborigine community. And like my nigga AP say all the time, there's several different ways to skin a cat. You know what I'm saying? So if this is an avenue that you utilize and it's bringing liberation to your people, then who are we to shun that. You understand? Because we don't like the vernacular or the terminology. If it's bringing forth results, that's what the people claim they care about. So if whatever is bringing forth results and it's honoring the ancestors in the proper frequency, I'm with it.
But
But
you,
I
but
don't
you,
see myself putting that down. But if I needed to utilize it to get the fuck up out of under the jurisdiction, I wouldn't
Right,
be against that either. You
but
understand what I'm
right,
saying?
right. But
right.
this is what we're saying. That we're not saying don't say indigenous or aboriginal or Indian or whatever. We're just saying attach more to it because it's going to give it it's going to give it more.
Validity.
It's like what we call biting with teeth instead of gums.
Well, let me show you a vibe too, brethren. I agree with you in that aspect, but the jurisdiction that you're in is separate than the jurisdiction of America, and
No, it's not. It's not because when you check Article 11 of the Articles of Confederation, Canada
Yes, it is.
Canada acceded to everything in the Union of the United States.
That's why you need a
right,
passport.
So the assumption is that Canada is some separate entity from the United States when both of those are the same corporation. Downtown Toronto, where I live, they have government buildings with United States flag on it out here. Why?
Facts.
right. Well, that just really
Same
changed over. What
corporation.
was it,
That's the
2013,
UCC.
when
Same
you guys
corporation.
end up getting your independence back in Canada? What was that? 2000. I'm not sure the year,
No,
but
You need a
all I got
passport to get into Canada, bro.
it was 1982.
1982. That's when that
That,
transition. But
that's
it's
when
still right
still
now. You guys in
same
Canada are
corporation.
fighting. Yeah, you guys are fighting to get total rule of yourself and totally kick out the queen
No,
or the parliament rule.
let me give
So
you another example. There's out here instead of states, there's provinces, right?
Yeah.
So the province of Quebec, right? They're French. They exercise French sovereignty here, and they don't have nothing to do with Queen or none of that. They deal with French everything. You can't even go in there and speak English
Yep.
because they're exercising their quote unquote French sovereignty.
everything.
Because when they
Right.
had a war with the British and they beat the British ass or whatever, they said we're not compromising. We're staying French. That's going to be our head language, and then English is going to be a second language, right?
Well, you have a place in America like that too, called Louisiana, where
Yep.
it's Providence and not townships or counties. It's
Right,
Providence.
right.
Well,
And it's about you know
French speaking people
it's
too.
always remembering that none of these, no matter what they're claiming, they're still foreigners here
yep.
because this is not France. So they could talk that BS all they want, but we know Moors who are in that jurisdiction of Quebec, and when they have issues, the same way that we talk in English about de facto law and quasi and all that stuff, that's the same stuff they're telling them, and they get their stuff dismissed in French because they understand that this is their land. They understand that the people who are in control of the land are foreigners. Being that they're foreigners, automatically they don't have jurisdiction because they're a foreigner, especially over the Aboriginal and Indigenous people. They don't have jurisdiction. But if the Aboriginal and Indigenous people don't know who they are, and they're assuming that people are government and people are police, and they're using these terms as if there's a legitimate thing going on here, then they're setting themselves up to be played. Which is why I made the point that Articles of Confederation, Article 11, Canada acceded to everything in the Union, which would mean that Canada itself, the whole jurisdiction of Canada, is a state of the United States corporation.
That's right.
So don't think about Constitution Act 1982 and all that stuff. As soon as you go there, you're giving them that authority of having some type of power to do that when they don't have power to do that. The only constitution is the Constitution for the United States of America Republic, which governs Canada and United States, because Mexico got their own constitution, Brazil got their own constitution, Cuba got their own constitution, and all of them are republics too.
Actually, the one, it's United States for America, that covers the whole continent.
Right.
And then they changed it of America, so it only controls
why did they
North America.
They changed it because of the dumb. People started People started not thinking. People started not thinking and just going with what the status quo was, which is why the biggest lesson about standing up is making sure you go against the grain.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go with the grain, because the going with the grain is the colonizers. It's no different than how they played people with G.I. Joe cartoon. Everybody think G.I. Joe's the heroes. They're the colonizer. Cobra is really the heroes.
Or Thundercats, when they was fucking with Mumra, they went to Mumra land, planet to try to colonize it and make me think Lionel and Lioness is the heroes, but they're not. They colonize us.
Even though all of it was relative, because Thundera was a sphinx and Mumra was in pyramids, which is both the same thing. So really what they're doing is us against each other, which is the same stuff that we're going on with right now. Everybody who looks like themselves is against each other, just like the Thundercats and Mumra and the crew, when both of them were representing ancient Kemet.
Hey, brothers. Some of the people in the chat room might not be old enough to remember those cartoons.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, because you can't knock Lionel for opening his third eye with that sword. He obviously wasn't evil. If he, you know what I mean, he obviously wasn't evil. If the sword's eye was his third eye, he was obviously on some science from our ancestors, right? You know, you already know Panthro was a brother.
But you know, they didn't find the sword, and they found the sword inside the pyramids where Mumra was protecting the sword.
Exactly.
To say that was the eye of Horus on that sword.
Exactly. Right, using our sciences. Right, even with Brave Star
back in the day, bro.
Right, even Brave Star was a sheriff, but he was an Indian. He wasn't European. Brave Star was the sheriff, but he was the Indian. He wasn't a European.
So was the Lone Ranger.
What are you telling you?
So was the Lone Ranger.
Exactly.
The Lone Ranger was an Indian.
Right.
And him and Tonto, if you ever look it up, he's Reeves.
Sheriff Bass Reeves.
Right. So all these guys that you seen it when they started the programming, when they started bringing out the TV and putting roots on there and telling you, oh, you all were slaves. Oh, you did this.
Put the Anglo face on it. Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Change history right in front of you.
Brethren in chat room, if y'all can see this, y'all remember the cowboy Doc Ross, right?
Yeah. Doc Ross, I think. Yeah.
That was my great granddad. Look, I'm showing y'all our lineage reunion right here. It was in Mississippi. Macomb, Mississippi. Doc and Lily Ross. The same names is used in the movies. So a lot of our people, I'm just showing this so y'all can remember, a lot of our people were very important people that's used in a lot of headlines that you might not even realize that those names sound so familiar because your soul told you, hey, that's your lineage, but your brain haven't registered it.
Yeah, but now look at this now too. That the name Ross, right? This is on from Ancient and Modern Britons by David McRitchie, European scholar, right? The name Ross is Welsh from RHOS, which means moorland. Just to put that out there.
I hear you talking, but I never found anything.
Nobody wants you to go beyond the what do you call it? The creation of the United States. Nobody wants you to go beyond that, because then when you go beyond it, you'll actually see that you guys were in control the whole time.
Yo, are you still on? Are you still in there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
mic
happened?
check. You
Sorry,
good?
basically, mic check. So basically, a treaty is begging you not to kick their ass, not to keep
No.
killing them.
Yeah, that's a white flag.
Remember okay, so everybody likes to think, oh, it's the creation of the country, the creation of the country. They want you to stop only with the creation of the country, the article of confederation, this and this and that. No, go beyond that. You'll see, since 1492 it was ass kicking, ass kicking, ass kicking, all the way up to the 1800s, where Dessalines became the emperor and was actually crowned by the church as emperor. Okay.
Of the U.S.
uh because Haiti was the original freaking thing, man. Jamaica, the West Indian Islands, those were the running the show. Okay, and then it was the 13 colonies and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the chat room, the islands that he's speaking of were the gateways. Those were the actual gateways to the North Gate. So
Right.
those were the dominant war islands that Columbus talked about getting fucked up 3 times coming here before he finally had made a treaty to be able to come and sit down in it. And for the chat room, Columbus was a semi-colored man. He was a mulatto.
That's right. They got screwed up bad, bad, bad. I'm talking, if you ever read about some of the revolts, they like to call it slave revolts. But the thing is, Slavs or Slavanians or slaves weren't over here yet. Okay? It
Right.
was the revolts against the Indians. The Indians were not to be messed with. Okay? They were not to be enslaved, right? And what happened? You started messing with them, and what happened? They kept dying over and over. We would take ships. They had to go make treaties somewhere else. Please help us create a United States.
You know that movie 300 is actually off a true story about 200 Indians that went up to Delaware and destroyed the fuck out of the goddamn post and the Union when they were about to try to create a war. They heard about it early and went up there and set up
See?
war up towards Delaware and fucked they ass up. 200 of them.
The most dangerous martial arts that ever came out of freaking. Remember, they say, oh, you watch all these kung fu movies, right? And you see,
Mm.
oh, it was an Indian that was traveling and basically taught them martial arts and meditation and shit. Where do you think that Indian came from? Remember,
America's
over there was called the British Raj in the 1900s.
right, right, right.
Okay, this was always known as India, Jerusalem, or what do you call it? Ethiopia, or where the Indians dwell.
Madi,
Yo,
Madi, they, Madi.
capoeira, capoeira, boxing, kickboxing. Kickboxing is capoeira and boxing. Now mix those two together. You got the most deadliest martial arts, bro.
And then you got the ninja, which is the Naga, and then you got
The Naga
the
talks,
yes, then you got the fucking samurais and all of
right?
that, which was a goddamn trait of a lot of our ancient war knowledge and
And they
shit.
and they were brought over there by the Portuguese.
Yep.
You see, so all of this stuff, all you have to do is just look and read and start just realize, holy smokes, that's why they all want to be over here,
Hmm.
right? That's
Land
why they
of milk
want.
and honey.
Uh,
And if you overstand agriculture, you grow everything right here in
ev-
America. And,
everything.
and you pretty much take things from here to plant in other places for it to thrive. Um, Everything are derived from here. Ain't nothing behind that. Period. You know what I'm saying?
That's where they agriculture is where they get the cloning from, because they knew that we knew how to clone plants like fruits and all of that, fruit plants. We used to know how to clone them and replant them, start a whole tree, and it was amazing to them. So now it's just like, wow.
Bubby.
And hold on, and another one thing, I used to like, what do you call it? Be on, like, I learned a lot of stuff from the Moors and stuff like that, but I really didn't understand where they were all coming from, and until I read the Circle Seven Quran, right? And I don't look at it as like a spiritual book or anything like that. I look at it as a book that was written by a good man trying to like teaches people how to basically get out of the bullshit situation that we're in. You know what I mean? And when I
Hmm.
look at like people like Marcus Garvey dealing with all that bullshit, like creating like Black Wall Street so we can empower ourselves economically. I'm gonna say so. I'm gonna say this: when he got deported out of America, right? He went to Jamaica and was put into jail. You see? And then after that, while everybody else was jumping on a ship to go to Nova Scotia, and then from Nova Scotia they went to Liberia and Sierra Leone, right? Where did he go? He didn't go to Africa. He went right to Canada and got more property up there in Canada because it was a different jurisdiction. And he started a UNIA in every single province, in every single city. And there's at least 2 or 3 cities in every province. Nobody knows about that, but they all want to talk, oh, this and that. No, that man, studying that man, you will learn how to open 10 businesses in 1 week.
For real, for real.
See? So he wanted economic empowerment for his people here because he knew where the hell he came from.
And it's not even wanted. He succeeded in that. It's his own that sold him out.
Facts.
Why?
W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois and a couple of other people end up ratting on him and saying that he was embezzling the money or doing he got kicked out of America for um mail fraud. Mail fraud. And
Because why? Now, how did he do that? Postmaster Generals. You
yeah,
see?
they were sending, I guess they were sending funds through the mail, cash funds through the mail. You
Okay. What
understand?
do they do now? What do they do now when they send you a check? When the so-called government sends you a check, or the policy enforcer sends you a check
Mhm.
through the mail, isn't that the same thing?
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's not accessories. Cash. It's against the law to send money through the mail. Cash money. That's against
Same.
the law. That's how they got it from mail fraud.
But again, the issue was that he was doing it in their name, which is why the case, when you check the docket for the case against Marcus Garvey, it says defendant in error and plaintiff in error, just like the Dred Scott case, because you can't be claiming to be a free man, but you have the name of a European, which is why when he was in prison, after he got visited by Noble Drew Ali, he sent out the letter to all the Garveyites to let them know that the only way the Negro is going to be happy is when he's restored to his true nationality. And then they got him out of the country quick fast. And then they had the letter infiltrated or intercepted by the sellouts, and then the Garveyites didn't even know that Marcus Garvey was pushing for them to claim nationalities and stop playing the Negro game. because at that point he already knew that it was done. He already knew that he was in error by trying to naturalize as a United States citizen when he's Aboriginal and Indigenous. He's a Maroon. What he need their documents for? If
That's
he's
true.
Maroon and he's from the land.
That's true. Because if you read the Maroon Treaty and learn anything about the Maroons, when Captain Cujo came off that ship, where did he go? He went into the hills where the Indians dwell.
Because you don't need any food. This is like a food one, so it has like.
But then keep in mind as well that in the Maroon Treaty, they also had an article where if the Maroons see slaves, they're supposed to turn them into the British.
That's true. There was, still today, you know that, eh?
What's this?
Still today, there's Maroons. Basically, they're the ones running the police force.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where all their badges and award decory coming off of the Moorish site.
No, that
I give credit to civil order, bro.
It says 2. What color did you eat?
And also the Masons are you see how they wear the fez and thing? Well, the Shriners and different sects of Mason, because they're of a Moorish descent again. Even the word Mason is son of Islam. You know what I'm saying? Son of a star. Son of a star.
And because of from a historical perspective, regardless of whether they were classified as Indian or black or slave or whatever these Europeans classified us as, the war historically is always between Islam and Christendom, because they already know that everybody who's dark skin is I self-law master. This is historically the wars between the Moors and the Christians. Everybody knows who the Christians are, but unfortunately, the Moors don't know who they are, which is why they stay losing.
Hey, peep, though, I know some people in the chat room heard some things that they might want to hear clairvoyance to. The point where when we were talking about how the Maroons, you know what I'm saying, when they were basically in cahoots about the land and stuff like that, and then they were told by some of the Brits that if they seen some of the Slavs that they need to report them, right? That ties into the runaway Slavs. So for the chat room, that's the runaway slave. When you hear that runaway slave story, you're talking about runaway Slavs. Okay, go ahead.
Right. Because, and again, just to stress the point that the brother said earlier, that's why they put out that movie with Eddie Murphy, Trading Places, because that's how they win, by trading places with us. They make you think that your Moorish garb is something negative because the KKK is wearing it. They make you think that Masonry is something negative and nothing to do with you because only Europeans are doing that. They make you think that martial arts is not your stuff because only Asians do that. They make you think that everything that you founded has nothing to do with you now, and then put somebody else in it or put some blackface on it and have you hate your own stuff. When, for example, with the Slav, the brothers are right. Slave comes from Slav, and Slavs are Europeans. But how did these people become Slavs? Because they were under slavery to the Moors. And the Moors were the ones who were ruling the planet when these Europeans came out the cave. When the Europeans came out the cave, Moors were ruling. Dark-skinned people were ruling. If you
Moors
don't
was really rulers of the sea, though, right?
Say it again?
They was really rulers of the sea.
Yeah,
and orchestrators of trade.
Right.
That's how they got so much power, because they knew the routes.
And that's really where the power is. The power is, if you can get from one continent to another continent, you have power. Now
Well,
imagine
this is how America ended up taking power after the Revolutionary War. They end up becoming the head of all commerce,
right,
and
and
from
but
that
why
point
Hey,
they
is
took
that?
power.
Because
hey,
because
yo,
more
that one. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that's where I was talking about the way they came to do business here, and that was the Treaty of Peace and Friendship with Morocco. Because the thing is, when you read that treaty, it talks all about ships and vessels. You see what I'm saying? If you if you come up on a ship and you have to honor this, and you can't take this ship and that ship and all his, you have to give back the cargo and all that kind of stuff. It's the same kind of stuff. They're using the same kind of ocean trade merchants law, right, to do business here.
that, but why are they doing that? Because the people who used to do that, they relinquish their position. Or look up abandonment in a law dictionary.
That's
If you
right.
abandon, that means that you have no intentions of claiming it. So as far as that whole commerce and trade, when they talk about um, um, the trade routes, right? Golden trade of the Moors and all that stuff. That was worldwide. That was continent to continent to continent. That wasn't just in some little jurisdiction of Europe where the Moors were at. That was a worldwide thing. So these Europeans realized that, hold on a second, if we can get the Moors to be something that they're not, and they accept it, then we would have jurisdiction over all the trade routes. Little did they know that by them doing that, they actually set themselves up karmically, because you cannot take the position of your foreparents without giving them honors. You can't take away a man's rights and then claim that you have rights that need to be respected. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that as far as universal law is concerned. Which is why there's this concept in Asiatic or African or indigenous or whatever culture that time is not linear, it's cyclical. Whatever goes around is gonna come back around again. So keep playing around like they have some type of power. Their reign is about up. The only thing that's holding this back is our people not realizing the truth about themselves and who they are. That's the only thing holding these Europeans in power right now. The only thing holding them in power is the sellout agents who are working with them that don't want to realize that it's over for the European powers. Like their stuff is done. Once the people realize that the time's up and they start taking some quote unquote responsibility for ourselves, for each other, for other people's children, just like how it used to be back in the day. Back in the day, you're not just getting beat by your mom, your aunt's beating your ass, your grandma's beating your
Next
ass.
door neighbor, all of them people there touching you.
Everybody. They get a hold of you, they
All
kill
them
it.
people touching
You
you,
Right?
see?
yeah.
Neighbors beating your ass. Neighbors see you do some BS. You can't go home. Neighbors gonna rat to your mom. Yo, I seen your son at the store doing madness. They're not doing that now. Now they call that snitching. That's not snitching. That's why you doing madness. If you're gonna do madness and get caught and somebody tell somebody on you that you're doing madness, how are you blaming the person who's trying to steer you right? That's not snitching. But this is the thing that's created because of our people not knowing themselves, not knowing who they are. Now everything's gone haywire. And it's good that we have these, you know what I mean? The good thing about internet and all that, we have these platforms right now where we're able to get this information out to the people. Hopefully that they leave these streams or whatever, they apply some of this stuff to their life and change the frequency around them, around their family, so that the thing could change as a whole, you know?
Well, Virgin, I appreciate you very much, right? And I don't debate you in no kind of way. I'm gonna just give you my facts on the term Moor. Okay, here in America, under this um site of rulership. Far as my studies done take me where there was a trade agreement between the indigenous, I say Nubians because that's where my studies take me, of this land, incoherent with the Moors. And the Moors as a title name. And when the Moors actually owned the East Indian Trading Company, and when they did a friendship of what is it, a friendship of treaty, they actually turned in the East Indian Trading Company over to the ruleship of America or America's authority. And they started to take on the names of the establishment and let go of the names of the um the Moorish site. Now, when we go and deal with Indians, again, this is where my studies took me. Indians are supposed to have a right of way by way of being part Moor. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Like when you say Indians, you mean Aboriginals over here?
No, not Aboriginal. Well, that's really what I mean. But far as the paperwork is concerned,
Yeah,
the Indians are the nickel Indian or the $5
right,
Indian or however they want to call it.
right.
But in real aspect, the indigenous here that made it with the Moors that was trading with this land was specifically called Indians. Like today, you'll call it uh, um, um, a white and a black mixed child.
Right.
What they call them, mulatto
Yeah,
or something.
mulatto. Yeah,
Right, and that. Now that's an established name under this banner, or a title entitled name under this banner. So I'm not in disagreement with you at all about certain status of Moor or certain status of Indians or none of that. But it does place you under the jurisdiction of entitlement or titles.
no,
If you can feel me where I'm coming in.
look at it like this. Like if it places us, if the unite, for example, the so-called White House, right, is really
Uh-huh.
Casablanca.
Casablanca.
The White House, yeah, because that's what Casablanca means, White House.
Yeah,
But,
Casablanca.
but
Yeah,
they're
White
but
House.
they're speaking to us and saying this is the White House. That's not the White House. That White House used to be sandstone.
Need to do it.
Facts.
So if that White House used to be sandstone, that means that has nothing to do with Europeans because we're the only ones that work with sandstone.
Mm-hmm.
Europeans don't work with sandstone. So when they say that thing like, okay, well, the Moors are under the jurisdiction or whatever, if we put ourselves in the mindset of the jurisdiction actually being the Continental Congress, which is really us ruling, then why wouldn't we want to be under that jurisdiction? We keep looking at it like the people who are parading around today calling themselves governor of this and whatever, that's their stuff. Go get a book called Moors and Masonry by a brother by the name of Abdullah El Talib Mozi Bey. You can go to moorsandmasonry.org and he breaks down the whole thing about how the United States government that we see today is really impostorship of the Moorish D-land.
Yeah, the Moorish state. Yeah.
Right? Because they had to give up the perception to the world that the Moors were still in charge. That's why all these people are Masons behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Like all of them are Masons behind closed doors. That's just what they are.
Facts.
But it's not a negative, because why does a Mason wear an apron? Because he's trying to cover his lower self, because Masonry is supposed to raise him to higher degrees.
Yeah. And he's supposed to
It's
keep
not,
their
when you hear people talk about Illuminati and people go in the coffin and all that stuff and homosexuality and all that, that's not Masonry. That's a whole separate thing that have nothing to do with Masonry. True Masonry is Europeans getting out of their base self and getting to some type of higher level, which is why they have graduation in degrees as Masons. But we're only looking at the low vibratory Masons who only got 30-something degrees. They got 90-something degree Masons out there.
Well,
If you talk to a 90 whatever degree Mason, you're not gonna think that they're Illuminati and all that stuff. You're gonna think that they're one of the Aboriginal Indigenous people who were floating around here in ancient
It
times.
goes all the way up to 720, bro.
Right? But this is what I'm saying. If it goes all the way to 720 and these Europeans are only at 90 degrees and that's the highest that they can go, then whose degrees are the rest of the degrees? It's not Europeans, because they weren't able to even when they went to Kemet to go learn, they had to go learn for 40 years. Half of them dropped out. Only Socrates and those people there lasted 40 years. Majority of those people didn't make it 40 years. Majority of those Europeans who went to go learn in the temples of ancient Egypt, they didn't even make it to the 40 years. They didn't even graduate. Which is why, again, if this thing goes up, if Masonry goes up to 720 degrees and these people only got 33 degrees, how the hell are they ruling over us with 33 degrees? It's no different than when we look at the slave story and people talking stuff about, oh yeah, slave master this and that or whatever. But hold on a second. There was 5,000 slaves on a plantation with 3 people, and these 3 people didn't get rushed by these 5,000 people. What's wrong with these 5,000 people?
Hold on. That was a lie. I read stories about intestines hanging on trees and freaking wives waking up seeing slave masters hanging from a tree. And so, yeah.
Yeah, but again, when we look at those stories.
Yeah, so one of the sisters put in the back chat, Blue. The 33 is the line where they're Jesus dying at 33. That could be a possibility why they do that up to that 33, because of the story of them Christ reaching supreme deityness at 33.
Yeah, but so if Christ reached supreme deification at the age of 33, he wasn't a European. Christ was Asiatic. Christ was a brother.
Yeah.
So there's no way that it was only 33 degrees, because that was a brother. And brothers, even dumb nigger, to get higher than 33 degrees. Just because of melanin.
Then someone else put in Haile Selassie is a 920 and known as the greater than Solomon. Yeah. I thought it was 720. I thought it was 720 though.
Senior.
But I do know Haile Selassie was supposed to be one of the highest masonry what they call them wizards of all.
Yeah, but that's why the Pope kisses his ring. That's why the Queen kisses his ring. That's why the
bow down to him.
Ring. Yeah. That's why they bow down to him and all that stuff.
Haven't you noticed? Hold on. Nobody noticed that he's pulling his ring away? Go try kiss his ring right now. He's not in contract with you. He broke all contracts.
There's
who that, Selassie?
Today.
No, the Pope.
And it really triggered.
Selassie. He didn't really break any.
Yeah, I do.
But when
he really upheld it, you know what I'm saying?
Even when you look at the Pope right now, you just go on the Pope website, look up Motu Proprio. He's calling out everybody. He's throwing everybody under the bus right now.
Hey, where do you think he grew up?
You're not. That's a fatal attempt at suicide.
Where do you think he grew up? He grew up.
Yeah, the Pope right now is from Venezuela. He knows what's up.
I told you about all these things.
Yeah, Venezuela. Yeah, he is from Venezuela. No, I thought he signed himself out. What's that, Benedict?
Again, like remember,
Benedict had to quit. Benedict had to quit because there was something happened where he basically quit. This was the first Jesuit, and the Jesuits were the ones who were basically who were sent here at first to basically learn the indigenous ways, right? And then they went against the edict of sublimus Deus. that was signed by the Jesuits. You see
That
what I'm
side's
saying?
clean.
And then the thing is that when you look into the history of it, he's the first. He's the one who's supposed to basically like bring the house back in order.
Forest Lawn High School.
But again, too, remember that there was too much corruption in the Catholic Church.
Pure corruption.
For what?
So so you know, it's just like what they say, you know, the glass house concept. Like, you can't be talking crazy about people and telling them worship this and God is our savior and all that stuff, but then we can see you in your glass house doing almshouse.
Yo, let me ask my Canadian brothers and them a real question now. And you know, I'm not trying to be biased or anything like that, but do you find a lot of Canadians do a lot of depth research into law than the American brothers?
As far as our people or Europeans?
Our people. Far as the Canadian America split, the border split, do you feel that the brethren over in America and Canada, they more enlightened on status than the majority of the brethren in America?
No, the only individuals in this jurisdiction who I know study law are Moors. I mean, there are people who study law, but I wouldn't say that they study de jure law. They might know more about de facto law than de jure law, but I wouldn't say that they study law more than people in the South, because I know that you know, whether it's Moors or blacks or whatever they classify themselves as, they at least have the concept of constitution being supreme law of the land. They have certain underground ideas about what true law is, and that, you know, certain things can't really be used as law. But then on the other hand, when you look at it from, you know, the perspective of what is law, majority of our people who are south of Canada, they gravitate more to civil rights, which was unconstitutional since the 1800s, which shows that they don't know law. Because if they're going to follow some unconstitutional stuff from the 1800s, then they're really playing themselves. So it might be a balance. It might be a balance. Because like, for example, up here, it's more multicultural up here, right? Like a lot of different people from different parts of the world are here. So they're coming with their national mindset over here, and they're able to get certain things that Negro, black, colored people can't get because they don't have a national mindset.
Oh, you mean like over in Canada, by them not really exercising a what's that law you just called out?
De jure?
No. The civil right thing.
Civil rights. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the people over there, you don't really have any sight on a civil right type of thing. So it's really not involved like that.
Right.
And here in America, we have this big facade that we have civil rights pertaining to this Constitution. Exactly. So the majority of us ride on something we was given. Yeah, I got you.
Right.
I got you.
Which is crazy. Self-destructive. Right. Because you're putting all this energy behind something that's been unconstitutional since the 1800s. When for example, they can stand on UN declarations before civil rights and get further. But then in order to stand on UN declarations, you have to have a nationality. You can't be a fiction. You can't make a claim. You can't make a claim that you know, we want human rights, but you're calling yourself something that's not human. Human rights doesn't apply to you at that point.
A citizen.
Right? Yeah. You say, if you're say citizen, the next question is citizen of what? Well, I'm citizen of the United States. Well, you can't be a citizen of that, because that, according to the Ku Klux Klan oath, Only Europeans are citizens of the United States.
And that's what the Constitution was built on. It was for the Anglo, really the Jewish Anglo.
Which is why Noble Drew Ali told these Moors in the 1920s, enforce the Constitution, because the Constitution is supposed to keep the Europeans at bay.
That's right. That's right.
It's not for us to be. We already have our laws. We don't need
Right.
any laws, any man-made laws, in order for us to exist here. The issue is that the people who are the colonists, the people who are the criminals, the people who are the mercenaries, the people who are de facto, those are the ones that need laws, which is why the so-called Iroquois prepared that document for them, because they realize that these people are savages and they need some law and order. Because if they have none, they're going to continue going around raping, pillaging, and murdering people. So that was really to keep them at bay. This is why, again, when the first black congressman of Chicago, Oscar the Priest, came into power, which he came into power because of Moors, because he was a member of Moor Science Temple of America, and he made it a prerequisite that if you live in this city of Chicago, you better know the Constitution. Matter of fact, we're gonna put out that anybody who calls themselves black, Negro, African, or whatever, make sure you have this Constitution in your churches and teach that. Make sure you have the Constitution in the schools and teach the children about the Constitution so they can know what the supreme law of the land is. Not for them, but in order to know what rules and regulations this United States government is bound by, so that they can be kept at bay. Because if you don't enforce the Constitution, they're going to run amok. Which is why they were able to run amok up to now, because we haven't enforced the Constitution. We've been enforcing all this other BS that we think is law, like codes and acts and ordinances and statutes that have no power of law whatsoever.
That is there to regulate their government employees and their wards. That was told to me by an actual lawyer that came straight out of the bar, and I was asking her questions like, all these people are in uniform, right? So they have to follow the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code. She goes, yes. I said, and all the act, statutes, and regulations are for government employees in their wards, aren't they? She's like, yes. And then after she started looking around like, oh shit, was I even supposed to say that? Because I started digging, She was standing in front of a person who knew what was going on, because I'm just sick of the fraud, man.
And that's the key. The key is what did they say in the scriptures? That knowledge, people die for a lack of knowledge. They don't die because of guns or whatever.
Yep.
They die because they're incompetent.
Yep.
So get competent. That's why more say study, study, study. We don't care what your opinion is. Like, know something. When you know, then we could have a dialogue. Just like we did on this thing. There's no debating. There's no arguing. There's no going back and forth about who we call ourselves, whatever, because we already know what's up. How are we going to get ourselves out of these situations that we're in with these people? By correcting how we talk, by correcting our language, by correcting our mindset is how we're going to do that. And once you have right knowledge, then those things will be corrected. With wrong knowledge, it's up for assumption. And once it's up for assumption, here come these Europeans to assume jurisdiction over you and claim everything that you got, just because you were ignorant of the law. Or ignorant, period.
Yo, big brother, what's your name?
Oh, this is Kudro L.
Cujo, all right, Cujo. Yeah, I got a partner from back home named Cujo.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You enlighten me, boy. I appreciate your song. You know.
This is our obligation as people who have knowledge. Put it on to those who don't have knowledge so they can show themselves approved. This is our lessons. As far as me classifying myself as a Moor, and the brother brought up the Circle Seven, the Holy Quran earlier. Those are our lessons, and we study those lessons because it's for the uplifting of our people who have fallen, and they've fallen because they have no idea who they are. And again, give thanks to this platform for allowing discussion to happen, not debates, because there ain't nothing to debate once we have subject matter. Only reason that there's debating going on is because there's never subject matter.
Yeah, true.
And the subject matter is key because everybody knows that we don't know the law. You know what I mean? As soon as we start talking about United States government and all that stuff, you just played yourself because they're not a government, they're a corpse. And you just gave them governmental powers by calling them government. Oh, well, the police were supposed to whatever. Well, you just gave them police powers when they're mercenaries that don't have any oaths, and they're blanket bonded, which means they're
And yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to discuss with my brother and Yashua. You know how and I'm not talking about him while he's not here, but when certain people go to claiming the law of the land or the laws of the establishment and proclaiming the Indian Act and the treaties of Indian treaties and things, it's all. So when the police pull you over and you see you're Indian and you tell them you're Indian and this and that, they don't give a damn about the Constitution. They just dare to enforce policies.
mm-hmm.
So even though they supposed to took an oath to uphold the Constitution, they're not. Then that's not their game. That's like secondary to them. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
So if you going on a line and you claiming that these laws work and these laws is of righteousness and truth, well, how can these people come kill you over a traffic ticket when that's not even the law? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, again, you have to remember that the people who are enforcing, right? The
Yeah.
people that are enforcing, they're just doing their job. So we, like, for example, we tell Morris half the time, 3/4 of the time, don't be arguing with this guy about whatever. Take the ticket and go about your business. You be arguing with them on the side of the street. This guy has a gun and you don't. What are you arguing about? Take the ticket. You can fight the ticket. So fight the ticket and see them in court. And now you could stand on something and prove your claim or whatever. Don't it's just like we say with if you look at it from this perspective, you go to some restaurant or whatever, right? You get your food, you're eating your food, you get to the bottom, and then there's a hair in there. You're not gonna go argue. You're not gonna go argue with the cashier. You want to talk to a manager off the top. You're not even wasting your time with the cashier. As soon as you go in there, you're gonna tell them, "Oh, let me talk with a manager." Same thing. The judge, so-called judge, that's the manager. Go deal with him. He's the one that has the oath. He's the one that has the power to dismiss something or whatever. Not this guy on the side of the street with a gun who he only took that job because he was a punk in high school, and then now he has a job and he's going to be abusing his power because now he has a badge and stuff like that, and he
So,
can do what he wants.
so tell me how you feel about someone that stand for the rights and say they got their tool on them and they end up busting shot. Say the officer is giving unlawful orders, and we all know in law, anytime there's an unlawful order, you have the right to
Defend yourself.
contest it. Right, right. And when it comes to your property, you have right to defend your property in its full effect. Okay, so your property in the same your soul, your body is your soul's property, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you get pulled over and say I get pulled over and I got a tool on me, and this policy enforcer giving me an unlawful order, and I know it's unlawful, and I pull out a gun and bust him in the face. How you feel about that instance right there?
Well, one of the issues with that is what jurisdiction are you in? Because if that so-called firearm is registered, then that means that's not your property. So you'll be in violation by doing that.
Right. No, no registration, none.
Right,
I'm walking in my
right.
status of correction.
So
Right.
and so at that point, there's supposed to be notice given.
Right. Say,
Just like
I
there,
already. All right. Okay. Let me give you a full scenario. I already had a corrective status. I have a schedule of fee. I already have my declaration of depatriation, and I have my notice and my truth of um um shit. It's on the tip of
the
my tongue.
affidavit of whatever.
Affidavit of truth. Yeah,
Yeah.
affidavit of truth, and I have it in federally and in within the state and the states of travel. They have this information, and say the dumb cop still pull me, right? And he still want to go on like he's some big tight badass dude around, one of the biggest Joe Brown sheriff. You know what I'm saying? And I know my rights. I know where I stand. I know my status, and I'm not under their jurisdiction. Now this man come trying to force him way on me and him force him laws and him rules on me, and I'm not trying to commit joinder with the man, but the man tell me he gonna if I don't do something, he gonna do this to me, threaten me with imprisonment or even death. Because as soon as he walk up on me, he got a gun. So I'm already in fear of my life. So now I bust he in the face.
Yeah, but
Is
it's
that
crazy
a
because that would be the first instant. The first thing is you're calling for somebody higher than him. That's the first thing. The first thing is you call 911 and let
right?
them know that one of these guys are trying to violate you.
So you're saying don't bust them in their face.
I mean,
No,
because
you know the
you set
exact
yourself up.
the
Because
one thing.
they're gonna protect their own before they protect you, no matter what rights you got.
True. So what you got to do is call first instance, call 911 and let them know that you're being robbed.
Yeah, but they still gonna do something. You know, Indiana come out with a law, right? Where if you're given a unlawful order by a policeman, you can shoot the policeman. You know
No,
that's
most
right.
definitely.
True.
But that's Indiana. That's not all across the jurisdiction. So if you're not
Well,
in Indiana,
and
then
well, let me show you another. You have a lot of states in America has this stand your ground law. So that goes with citizens, non-citizens, and law enforcement, where you don't have to um, um, proclaim their testimony. You can stand on your own ground and not be afraid or back down. So, like in the state of Florida, you have a stand your ground law, which is basically the same thing Indiana state. And in federal government, they tell you off rip that you have the right to protect your property and to pursue all happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come get these policy invaders, who's hired not by the state but by the city, which is a township of corporation or a corporation, right? Um, those aren't really um marshals or sheriffs. They are hired mercenaries, like you said. That's
Yeah, that
true.
is true.
So
I
by them being who they are, and I am who I am, don't I have
is
this
that,
right?
is that is that really who you are though? Because if that
Yeah,
was
I, I
if that
yeah,
was the case, then if that was the case, then you should have bust the guy who tried to give you vaccine in the face You should have bust the principal who whatever should have bust him in the face. You not just the highway.
Yo,
The guy,
hey, Bridget. I
the
don't
guy,
think you realize. I don't think you realize who you're talking to here. A yard man, this you know. We don't run.
no, but I mean, again, like
We bust everybody in the blood clot face.
I tell you, no partiality on that. Period.
We no business if you're a teacher. We don't business if you're a doctor. We don't business if you're.
that's what I'm saying.
I don't care for none of them things there, us.
We say that you know what I mean, certain people are bad man and they're gonna do whatever, but they got, you know what I mean, pedophiles around here, they got their own community and stuff like that. Nobody's doing nothing to them with all this gun busting or whatever. So this is what I'm saying, like, is that really who we are? If we're not doing that right now to these people, that's probably not the move. Because like they say, there's many ways to skin a cat. I get where you're going, but that's like one in a whatever circumstance.
First thing is ask for a supervisor.
Yeah.
Because they're the only ones who are educated. They're the only ones who are basically educated. Because
I'm not gonna lie to you because it sounds cool. Yeah, just pull your gun because you got one and bust this guy because he's violating. Like there's many different angles that you can go with it. Because again, like if we're not gonna do that in every instance, you know what I mean, it's just like we say with people who say, "Oh yeah, we got a right to bear arms." All right, well, how come you weren't bearing your arms at church? How come you weren't bearing your arms at the grocery store? How come you're only bearing your arms when you're out here marching and picking it? You got a right to bear arms, and when you're shitting, you're bearing your arm. You're not just bearing your arm just when it's convenient.
You know, according to the Dick Act, right, that the right to bear arms, it means that if you have the right to bear arms, if you make it yourself. Because the thing about it is every single gun has a serial number and it's not your property. It's just like the money in your pocket.
Yeah, it's patent. It belongs to the government. Anything patent belongs to
anything's
the government.
patent. Yeah, that's right.
And that's what we were saying from the jump, that once it's registered, even if you don't register it, I mean, you might be in the jurisdiction. They might say, oh, all right, cool. You know what I mean? Self-defense, you got to bust that dude in the face or whatever, but we're gonna get you for bullets.
Right?
Or we're gonna get you for you know, the type of arm that you had or whatever. Because remember, the system's not foolproof. It's set up to run a certain way. It's set up for the ones that are in power to stay in power and the ones to have no power to stay without power. And as soon as you start exercising like you have some power, here they come to try to take that away.
Yo, hey, peace, my brothers. How everybody doing?
What's up, Chief?
Chilling, man. Hey, man, it's definitely an interesting conversation, y'all. Great build, y'all. Definitely. I got a couple questions, you know what I'm saying, about what you guys are literally talking about right now. So when I just got questions like far as like, okay, we know that was the Second Amendment in the Constitution, right to bear arms. I remember that one.
Yep.
So we know that there's a constitutional thing, right? So when it comes to Moorish Americans, how does the Second Amendment affect you guys? Because I literally seen a brother go through a checkpoint, a Moorish brother, right? Go through a checkpoint. He had his gun on his hip. The officer came to the window. So I asked him a question. He was like, he didn't want to answer no question. He had his fez on. Don't get it twisted. He had his fez on. So the dude kept talking crazy. So I'm asking for his ID and shit. And he was like, nah. He said, do you have a license for that? He was like, nah, I ain't got to tell you shit. Go get your supervisor, right? So whatever. When he got a supervisor, supervisor came talk to him. He had to go. He never gave him an ID. I'm looking at this shit like, yo, this is amazing, right? Right? because especially in the climate when we seeing people literally like the brother Falan Castile, is that what his name? The brother up in Minnesota that got shot on camera from his wife. He never
Yep.
reached for his gun. He was just sitting on his hip. Now, it kind of explained that, you know what I'm saying, from your perspective, you know what I'm saying, as far as how did that happen? You know what I'm saying? Was it the hat? I mean, was it his fez? Like what?
Which who want to go first on that?
That's the
Yeah,
difference.
everybody. It was dope. It was. Now, that was one thing I got to give. You know, I've seen. You know, that right there worked.
No, but this is what
I
we're
was
saying with regard to.
damn. I was like, damn, he tripping. You know what I'm saying? Because he had the gun on his hip.
Yeah, but this is what we're saying, that with regard to status, that it's either you're in a civiliter mortuus status, which means you have no rights, or you're in a in propria persona, in full life status, where you have rights. So if you're in a full life status, if you know who you are, then you better act and dress and talk like you know who you are, which is what the Moor did. Put them on notice. Hey, you know what? Just letting you know that I got a piece right here. You know what I mean? And just letting you know it's a constitutional right. Just letting you know I don't got no license. I don't got any whatever because I'm indigenous. I'm a Moor or whatever like that. Call your supervisor because I can't talk to you, cashier. I need to talk to the manager. And then the manager came and the manager backed up everything that the brother was standing on.
And one thing about Fidel Castro, he admitted that he was under the jurisdiction. When he told the man, I got to get my permit out, and the man said, no, don't move, don't move. He already told the man that I'm in your jurisdiction when he told him I got a permit. This means I'm regulated by you. So now when the man giving him order and the man see that you're my business now, I can do you any kind of way I want to do you. And that goes in the same as you get pulled over and they ask you for a driver's license and you give it to them. Well, the reason they ask you for a driver's license is to see if you're their property,
Exactly.
if you fall under their control.
Did you get permission to be on these roads, slave?
Right, and now you self-incriminating yourself. That's why it's best to say nothing. You plead the fifth if you have to until call your supervisor, call it what they call it, sergeant, the one with the stripes and the gold badge. Call the one with the stripes and the gold badge. That's the one I want to talk to. You know what I'm
And
That's
saying?
the one. Only one. There's two things. One, he's only can talk to a major. Do you understand?
Mhm.
He only can talk to a major, not a minor. A minor is one with a license, permission to be on the roads, permission to do this, permission to do business. A major is a fixture on the land.
Right.
See? Major, a minor is one that cannot handle their own affairs and needs other organizations to handle their own affairs. A major can handle their own affairs, know who they
And
are.
and not to cut you, brethren, this is
See?
the whole thing about the birth certificate now. The birth paper, the numbers at the bottom is actually a property lot number. So
See?
you're a fixture of the land, but you're a movable fixture. You understand? So this is how they trap you up again to pull you under their jurisdiction.
And one thing to answer that question, Chief. The brother had a fez on. Guess what? All of the higher officials, they're all
I already know.
Masons. They all wear fezes behind closed doors.
They already know what it is.
So when they see this dude driving around with a fez, guess what? He's on a higher plane than they are. They have to
Then they
hide behind closed doors, and he's out
right
in
to
the
where they
open.
fence.
Yeah, that's
Right.
real interesting.
Right.
That's what. There's another one where you see a brother. He basically gets pulled over. He's in a truck. The first thing he does is throw his flag out. He puts his flag on the outside. He said, "I don't have to talk to you. Bring your supervisor."
Right.
And then the supervisor.
I'm gonna go on a limb with this one, right?
Mhm.
And I'm gonna say that the hat actually didn't matter, right? And that his shout out to brother Jamal. I was hoping he was gonna be on this call tonight too, but we gave a verbal declaration. And look, as long as I've been living, man, and all the encounters I've had with the pigs, right? Um, I I never asked for a supervisor ever. I never challenged their jurisdiction over me. I just assumed I had the right to remain silent. Y'all understand what I'm saying? So and then I even like I remember like like the '90s. I remember a situation and they didn't read me my rights, and I'm like, I can get like, that shit don't matter. None of that. Like they violate so much, y'all. You know what I'm saying? So I, I'm saying if you legal, you know what I'm saying. I feel like you can make this declaration, and I don't really. And I could be wrong. Maybe you need to have some feathers on. Maybe you need to have your fez on, whatever the case may be, so they can recognize what y'all saying, higher authority. But I'm saying if I got a Yankees hat on, right. If I make my declaration, they gotta and then ask for their supervisor. You gotta kick rocks. That's the law, right? I made my declaration who I am.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
even if you go to YouTube and you look up Moor on the beach, there's a brother, same thing. He was a quote unquote Moor, but he didn't have fez on or nothing like that, and he stood on his square, and it went down how it went down.
Okay. No. It's hard to say, right? But I'm gonna say it anyway. Um, you can stand on your ground as much as possible and do what you want to do, right? You know they're gonna do what they want to do. Sometimes they're gonna test to see exactly where you at. Now, if you don't have this declaration or this notice in to the public and to the workers, the employees of the federal government and of the state, and they take you down, now you're working into fraud. No, you understand? So you really got to have your paperwork in order as well. Not saying that you need paperwork to beat their game for as whoop whoop whoop, but if you're standing on a certain status, it need to be notified. They need to be an acknowledgement before you try to make any transition moves. So you can have something solid to stand on as well, in case they take you in front of the court or the clerk of the court, or in case they take you in front of a magistrate or something of that sort. You your information is already in court of record, so they can't contest it in no kind of way, shape, or form. If you catch what I'm saying, get your paperwork acknowledged before you make these moves. Cause then you'll just be blowing hot air. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be making any false assumptions or false statements or anything like that.
Yeah, man, that's pretty dope, y'all. So I wanted to ask you guys tonight, what do you guys think about? Well, and I guess you guys actually like it because the brother at the checkpoint actually gave a verbal declaration. You know what I'm saying? So once again, shout out to brother Jamal once again. But can y'all kind of how would you? Because your brother Nadia had said something earlier, right? So I wanted to kind of go back over that. You know, as far as giving a verbal declaration to these pigs and policy. You know what I'm saying? So can y'all break that down for us?
I wish, well, basically, you cannot. I don't want to um, be in joiner with you, your agency, or anyone of any kind.
I wish not to be.
I
You
wish not
wish
to be.
not to be.
You see?
Or I shall not be. You
Yep.
make it a direct statement from your sound to them.
But again, if you go verbal and they challenge you on something physical, okay, fine. If you claim that you got so much rights, prove it. You got something to prove to me that you have these rights. and you can't show anything, or you have nothing to present to back up the claim, because remember that what's in the mind is abstract.
And they have to prove. Remember, they have to actually show identification themselves.
Yeah, the burden of proof is on them, right? The burden of proof is on them. But there's a
they
reason.
can trick you up. They
There's a
can
reason
trick
why
you up,
they're
though,
supposed to
Bridget.
use.
You know what I mean when I say they can trick you up. Like, say you place your statement, you know your status, you implement your status verbally. Now you're in front of the clerk of the court. Now the clerk of the court might trip you up and say, "Well, where you work at? Where do you live?" They got ways to trick you from backing down from your statement. Oh, I live at 1428 South Maroon Street. Um, area code, zip code 35115. Now you're giving them a jurisdiction to claim you under. Oh, where you work at? Oh, I work at Walmart in Atlanta. You're giving them a jurisdiction which they're controlled, which is in their control. Now they're looking at you as, aha, got you. You just committed fraud. You told the court one thing. Now you're not under this in actuality.
Which is
Or
why.
do you have? Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, which is why it's important that people don't get on these little streams and just throw stuff out there for people to go out there and try stuff.
Right.
These colonists,
Right.
than a lot of our people that are on these streams. So we can talk whatever amongst ourselves, and it might sound cool or whatever, but you go out there trying some stuff that you hear some Moors or some Aboriginals or people who know the law talking about, and you're not fully in that space, you can trap yourself. And then it's not going to be on them. It's going to be on you, because again, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So after they run down on you because you were incompetent or you didn't have full knowledge of something, you can't say, well, I didn't know that I couldn't do that or whatever. You should have known if you're going to be talking big boy.
And I also see someone saying the jurisdiction, if they claim jurisdiction over, they must produce the custodian bond. Jurisdiction must be proven on record when challenged, and also um court of record. When you got to ask to make sure that you is inside of a court of record, and that's the court. If they say no, you let them know you're in the wrong court. They got you in the wrong court. The next one was the jurisdiction, and I'm gonna give you this. When you go inside of a courtroom and they call your name and you acknowledge to that name, you're falling under their jurisdiction. When you go in a courtroom and they call you behind that fence line, that gate, you're now in their jurisdiction. So it's going to be hard for you to contest jurisdiction once you aboard their ship.
No, but keep in mind that any of these European courts or whatever are on your land, so they're really on your ship. Which again comes back to the whole status and where are you in your frame of mind? If your frame of mind is that I went to the court and the court's in the city of whatever or the state of whatever, then you're admitting jurisdiction before you even go to court. Just by calling it a court when it's not a court, you just admitted jurisdiction. Just by calling him a judge when he's not a judge, you're admitting jurisdiction. Right?
You're right. You're right.
It's not necessarily about cross the bar and all that stuff. All that is European sovereignty, whatever. That has nothing to do with our position, right? Because the state is a ship. Forget that building. The state is a ship. The country is a ship. All those things are jurisdictional to the colonizer, right? As soon as we realize that the reason why they get us so caught up is because they are manipulating the language, then we would change how we talk. And once we change how we talk, now we start creating jurisdictions, because the real power is the power to define, especially when you're going against colonizers who are going from a perspective of abridged language, telling you that something doesn't mean what it means when you know exactly what it means. Because meanings don't change. As soon as meanings change, you know that you're dealing with somebody who's trying to run fraud on you.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately, they're trying to run fraud on you. When meanings change, a cup is always going to be a cup. Somebody start telling you that a cup is a spaceship and all that stuff, and you're going with it, then they just got you. It's all about the language
And grammar.
So, sovereignty, I heard that word, right? And I've seen some sovereign nations, right, here on this land. One, I seen like down in New Mexico, you got the Navajos, right? They got their own police force, right? Now I didn't ask questions to the Navajo. I don't know if I was, would have been considered in his jurisdiction, right? Now I know that they have their own police force. That means they have their own judicial system, right? How hard would it be for us to create our own judicial system, bro?
Well, the issue with for example, with the Navajo, all of them know that they're Navajo. Nobody's debating, are we Navajo or are we not Navajo? Are we brown Navajo or black Navajo or whatever? All of them know that they're Navajo. So they have their own jurisdiction, no different than Jew. The Jews got their own police because all of them know that they're Jew. The Jews got their own blood bank because all of them know that they're Jew. Nobody's debating, nobody's arguing, nobody's in defiance of what the fact of the matter is, that this is what we are. So yeah, we can start our own stuff. But if some of us are going to be saying we're this, then some of us are going to be saying that we're that, and then some of us are going to be saying that we're some next thing, then there's no way that we're going to have our own anything. Because just like you said, you talked about sovereignty. If they're talking about sovereignty, then they're talking about nation. And if Navajo is a nation, then they have a right to have their own stuff. But then if the Navajo nation is in the jurisdiction of the United States, then that's probably not their own stuff like that. Especially when you go to the Navajo, when you go to the Navajo police logo, and the Navajo police logo has a European on there holding a cross and scales of justice and talking about 1868. Obviously, that's not ancient. Because why are they talking about 1868? If they're sovereign and they're Aboriginal and Indigenous, 1868 is modern.
Shit, Native Americans didn't exist in 1868 though. And, we see these mestizos, right? I like to say that because that's the actual technical term of the so-called Native Americans. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like I said, y'all, this is a good bill, man. I definitely want to bring a different energy to it. So, I'm gonna keep it the way the energy's going. Shout out to Aboriginal TV, man. Yeah, man, this is a good bill, man. Great information, y'all. I mean, my whole take on doing our own thing, right? Shout out to Ali Muhammad. I remember hearing Ali Muhammad talking about, if anybody, if you have a business, you have to register your business with the state, right? County, stuff like that, pay county taxes, pay state taxes, and you're regulated by the state, and and you got some federal stuff that you have to fill out as well. You know what I'm saying? But just to be able to bypass them and have our own indigenous, what would that be called, y'all? Like regulation, business regulators or whatever. So people will come and register their business, their Aboriginal businesses, with us, and we take those proceeds or whatever to build, you know, in our or no proceeds, whatever, but be able to have that option to be able to build our own nation. You know what I'm saying? I mean, after we have a nation, right? We can self-identify and form our own nation, but you have to have a form of a revenue, right? And one thing that our people on this land have been victimized of in this act of war is taxes, right? So if you guys, like we had talked about a little bit before, but what are some remedies for us to really get away from paying taxes, y'all? Because I think that's important um, tactic in us, you know,
Again,
Before we jump on that right quick, let me say this right fast, please. Because I got cut off while I was trying to chime in. I hit the wrong button there. But the whole thing about this police state, it giving them right away of the maritime law. Because if you see in their own statutes or their own songs or their own declaration, it's from sea to shining sea, which they are disregarding the land. So they trying to show you that you're still on you're gonna be on the maritime law with them as far as you doing business with them at any given time. So I just wanted to put that out there, that they say that the land is flooded. The water has flooded America. So it's from sea to shining sea is what they're looking to protect. So anything um within that that district or that jurisdiction is their jurisdiction. I back up. I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
with regard to the taxes, remember that the Constitution is to keep the Europeans at bay. Who's taxing us? The Europeans. So you enforce the Constitution, just like Drew Ali told us. What are you enforcing? You're enforcing Article 1, Section 8, because IRS is not Congress, and only Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes according to the Constitution. So how come people don't just hit the IRS with the fact that you guys aren't Congress? How are you taxing people? Second to that, you can go to rvbaypublications.com and just go to the taxes section, and they got so much information on there about why tax is illegal, especially from the IRS, that and they have case law, not just somebody's opinion, case law, ample amounts, hundreds of cases where people went to court already and put it on the record about the fraud of the IRS and how that quote unquote revenue service is really not internal, it's actually Inquisition. And the Inquisition is what they did against the Moors. And the people who are taxed most out here are dark-skinned people.
That's right.
And plus tax is something you're willing to do. What they call that?
Volunteer.
Voluntary, right?
Voluntary.
That's all voluntary right there, bro. Tax.
It's just like when you get a ticket. When you get a ticket on the side of the road, if you look at the fine print at the bottom, it says voluntary payment.
Okay, hold on now. Now, Wesley Snipes went to prison. I can name a handful of others that went to prison, right?
Because his name's Snipe. He's in their jurisdiction because he's fighting as Snipe. You can't fight as Snipe. Snipe's a European name. He's Dred Scott all over again. That's why he went to prison. And
they owed him money, to be honest with you.
He can actually go back and file to get that money back.
Yeah, the money and the time.
That's right.
He can get paid for the time he went and did.
And then you go down the line. Red Fox, Sammy Davis Jr., you name them. Lauren Hill, all of them got European names. That's why IRS is going after them, because they know that Negroes don't know the law and they could racketeer and rob these people because they're ignorant of law.
But again, brethren, render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. That's not no money. That's what you're being taxed is something they derived and made a substance of. They derived out of and made a substance of it. You understand? So if you're dealing in money, you're actually pertaining to keeping up the establishment.
And
You're
then
actually
and then don't forget, Wesley Snipes is also the European killer as Blade. So they have a personal vendetta against him because
a vampire,
he,
killer.
he's the vampire killer. So they have a personal one against him. And on top of him being the vampire killer, he was also starting up his own production company, Amin Ra Films, which you already
Mhm.
know if he's calling his stuff Amin Ra Films, you already know what type of movies he's going to be putting out. So they needed to bankrupt him as soon as possible.
Plus, look in your wallet. Do you have anything that belongs to, or do you have anything that belongs to the colonizer?
Yeah.
Because if you have anything that belongs to them, that means that you're holding their property, and
Now,
it comes with policies.
now in defense of that too, keep in mind that you have the right to private necessity. Because our land is colonized, that's why we have script in our pocket. That's why we have instruments from colonists or whatever. Because out of private necessity, I have to use these things. I'm not using them because of my free will. I'm using them because it's under threat, duress, and coercion.
Coercion.
So you can also use that when they try to pull up on you, like, well, you have the whatever, so you're in the jurisdiction. Oh no, I'm not in the jurisdiction because I'm only using this out of private necessity. This is not my choice to have a license. I have a license because you guys threatened to throw me in jail or whatever if I don't have one. So I have one under threat, duress, and coercion. Oh, that name, that's a straw man, that's all caps. No, that's not my name. But under threat, duress, and coercion, I'm going to use that name so you guys don't beat my ass or kill me or whatever like that because I already know how people do.
Have you guys ever heard of civil forfeiture? What they call it? Um,
Civil
for,
forfeiture? Forfeiture?
forfeiture. Yeah. Say it again.
Civil forfeiture.
Forfeiture. Yeah. Civil forfeiture. The law stipulates at any given time, if you got that dollar bill in your pocket, they can take it from you because it doesn't belong to you. And there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. You can go and sue the company, sue the police station that took it, but shit, you're just gonna get back. But if you get it back, you gotta prove how you got the money, prove what the money is for. It don't matter if it's a dollar, and then you gotta hire an attorney to go get the same money back. So you're really coming out of pocket, adding money to make money to get your money back. But the civil forfeiture is a site on you need to see where they can take the money from you because it don't belong to you.
That's
It's
why
not.
when they have drug busts or whatever like that, they take everybody's stuff under civil forfeiture. But it's not really for that. Like they're using it for that. But civil forfeiture is really for like what the brother is saying, them taking their property back. Why? Because these people are making $50 million a year selling drugs or whatever and not paying taxes. Civil forfeiture. Oh, you want to have a marijuana grow up because you're indigenous and you don't want to pay whatever? Civil forfeiture. Oh, you didn't pay your tickets, put a boot on your car and take your property? Civil forfeiture.
Oh, you don't have the title to your car? Civil forfeiture.
And it's all part of their game.
You
Because
the title to your house
have been
the MSO. You don't have the MSO
yeah.
to your vehicle is civil forfeiture.
Right, and even in this jurisdiction, you can't even get an MSO out here. Yep. Even if you go to the manufacturer they're giving you registration.
Mm-hmm.
They're not giving you
Damn,
MSO.
I got all my MCO MSOs on all my vehicles, all of my shit. I don't play that, and I don't have them registered. I ain't registered nothing to no state. I can jump out of the car right now and show you the back of my two of my cars I have in the yard right now. It ain't no one of them say tag applied for, and the other one don't even have a tag. I don't ride with that. Period. I actually had a judge tell me when I'm fighting a case right now. Not fighting a case. I already beat the case. I just taking the policemen to the policy officials to I'm taking them to court, a higher court here in the state, because I'm suing them for their shit. All kind of shit they did to me. Well, when I
Oh,
went to court for what they did to me, the judge threw it out with prejudice, and she told me basically because I had my own private tag on my vehicle, and she told me do not use that tag area because that tag area is strictly for commerce. The
Right.
judge actually told me this. So if you're driving with a tag on your car, you
mm-hmm.
automatically telling them that you're under their right of rule.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yep. Well, because in Canada, when you go to get what do you call it, a license plate, right? So you get a license plate that's a permission plate. Now they don't put the sticker on the plate. They get you to put the sticker on the plate. So you're now basically acquiescing to the permission plate. See?
And then secondary to that, they also make sure that because they all the plates used to be black
Mm-hmm.
because black plate was commerce, but now they have the blue plate. So the regular car has the blue plate, and trucks and buses and whatever like that have the black plate
Hmm.
because they want to get everybody in the jurisdiction of having these things.
Yo, it's hard to. You notice how hard it is to find stuff here?
That's colonization for you.
And the funny thing is, all we could do, anyone who actually knows themselves, all you do is just register to the same way that Nati does, the same way that Chief does, and everything like that. You see what I'm saying? All you have to do is just file those paperwork in the proper jurisdiction and let the Americas know.
Right, right.
You see? Because the thing is that Canada is a corporation that is a foreign corporation that was created in New York City and it was known as Upper Canada.
Yo,
Okay.
hey, I got another question. Canada, right? I've never been to Canada. I want to come up to Canada, right? Um, um, but there there are restrictions, right? How can I
Mhm.
get to Canada without passports, um, or even having to deal with the policy enforcers, the bounty they if I want to come to
Don't go
Canada?
through that border. Don't go through that border crossing.
There's places where there's no border.
There's no border.
Yeah.
But again, if you want to truck through those bushes and all that stuff, I mean, whatever. That's what it takes if you want to not
There's
do
there's
the border.
there's actually border cities too, like border towns, where one side of the town is Canada, one side of the town is United States, and there's no border crossing there.
Yeah, that's like in Mexico, Nogales. Nogales in Arizona the same way.
Mm.
Now tell me this, New England. Someone was telling me about New England was supposed to be Europe all over again, but brand by America, ruled by America. Something of that sort.
New Netherlands.
Was it
It was supposed to be. It's supposed to be New Netherlands. Then they made it New England.
oh, okay.
Right? Then what do you call it? That one place over there in New York was the same kind of thing. Because the thing is, they wanted to make a new Europe.
Yeah.
Remember the
Europe,
treaty.
yeah.
Remember, if you read the Treaty of Ghent, right, and the Treaty of Paris, they weren't signed here. But it deals.
Yeah.
But it sort of deals with here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just sneaky. It's all sneaky, man. It's just it's getting to
Like
the
you ever
point where it's
notice,
like,
like even when you
fuck.
talk about, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Even when you talk about the New England concept, you ever notice that Maine is in New Brunswick, but New Brunswick's part of Canada and Maine's part of US?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't understand that one either.
Yeah, because of the quote unquote borders.
Yep.
Because of the borders, because of the European colonization. All of it is one landmass.
It is.
Once they get the people to think that everything's separated, like there's all these different states and all that stuff, instead of looking at it as one landmass, now you're in the jurisdiction.
Well,
Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Ontario. You're starting to
Nova Scotia,
get
Newfoundland
into jurisdictions that were created by them.
And the thing is that you have to also think they're actually putting you into insane jurisdiction, because there's only a lawyer can only represent an insane individual or a minor, right? And the thing is, you're an insane individual to think that there's a freaking imaginary lion on the ground that's separating all this place, and it's one place.
Well, I think it was Root Words that told me that Maryland was actually Moorland. I think Root Words told me that. Root Words, did you say that? Oh, he ain't on the channel with it.
No.
Yeah, I thought he told me one time that Maryland was actually Moorland.
The Maury.
Or
M-O-R-I.
Yeah, or the name of a Moor's mother is Mary or something like that. I gotta get back in with that bridge.
It's funny, because if you look in Peru, in Cusco, the what do you call it? The female, what is it? The mother church. The mother church is actually in Peru, Cusco, Peru.
Yeah, and that's where they got them. What are they supposed to be? Inca people.
Yeah, the Incas.
Yeah, the original Incas or something like that. So they say.
Yeah.
So they say.
The Incas and the Mayans.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Once you go beyond the 1800s and stuff like that, where they just want you to stay stuck on North America, you'll realize that go beyond that. You'll realize you also to South America as well. It's one continent, the Continental Congress.
Organization of American States.
Right.
So the Organization of American States is,
and it wasn't just the
American States.
Right. It was the United States for America, North, South, and Central, including the Caribbean, or including the West Indian Islands. Sneaky. Everything's just sneaky, man. Now the words are even sneaky. That's why
it's only sneaky It's only sneaky because our people, who were the rulers of this place, fell from grace, and now we're complaining.
Yeah, for real. Complaining about our father's sins, yeah.
Right?
Brother Chief, you got any more question?